The book is always better than the movie. It's a common phrase tossed around in praise of the original source material to its more visual counterpart. Of course, when it comes to manga and anime, there's so much more to compare, especially in imagery. But I often find myself asking, what makes this better than this? Well, some would give the simplistic explanation. It's what you experience first, so of course you always go into an adaptation with preconceived notions. Take The Ancient Magus Bride, for example. I love the manga, I adored it. So when I finally bought the Blu-ray and watched the show, while I wasn't necessarily disappointed, I thought the show was a little too colorful, too whimsical. Everything was this grand sweeping thing, and the melancholy that the manga has and the more subtle darkness isn't quite represented in the same way. But what about the other direction? Let's say Call of the Night. I first watched this when it was coming out and fell in love with it almost instantly. Before we knew we were getting a second season, I decided to buy all the manga that was released, and it's now my favorite manga of all time. While I still love the show and adore both mediums for different reasons, I find myself delighting in the manga a lot more. But the difference is interesting. Sometimes the voices in our heads may not translate to screen. When I first read Ancient Magus Bride, I couldn't help but hear Chise and Elias as Jeremy Lee and J. Michael Tatum, respectively. Not to say that Danny Chambers and Brian Mathis did a poor job, it was just hard to cement the two's portrayals in my mind at first. On the opposite side of the spectrum, when I first watched Call of the Night and then read it, I couldn't help but hear Gabriel Regojo and Natalie Rial as Ko and Nazuna. Voices will differ depending on if you watch subbed or dubbed, of course, but I think this does matter. It's uncanny when you imagine a character sounding a certain way, only for the director or actor to take it in a different direction.
You put your name in the goblet of fire.
But another comparison often made is cut or changed content. It could be as small as an introspective conversation being cut to an entire arc being removed altogether. Harkening back to Call of the Night, there is a chapter where the protagonist Ko, a young insomniac wandering the streets of Tokyo making friends with vampires, as you do, finds his teacher drunk on a bench, and they have an introspective conversation about perfectionism and the need to look perfect on the outside versus what's underneath. A great chapter and a nice scene for sure, but not necessary to the overall story. In fact, I would say that it would be repetitious, as these themes are portrayed with other conversations that they have throughout the show. On the other hand, there is an entire arc that was removed from the second season of Call of the Night. If you haven't read the manga, you probably aren't noticing the absence. But this small, seemingly insignificant arc serves as an important observation about love and attraction and shows the developing relationship of the protagonist. So the question is, why? Why cut anything? Why not just copy and print what's on page to screen? I mean, Frieren is lauded with praise because of how close it is to the manga. As a matter of fact, a lot of anime are praised for using the manga as a strict storyboard and then adding movement to enhance the comedic or dramatic timing. But a show like Kaguya-sama makes several cuts in the interim of beginning to ending and even rearranges certain events. Nevertheless, it's gained significant praise as an adaptation. While I haven't seen The Stairway to Adulthood or finished the manga at the time of recording this, I can honestly say I do prefer the anime overall. There's a specific instance where the cuts really work to the show's favor. In chapter 36 of the manga, Kaguya feels insecure about her feelings towards Shirogane due to a change in his looks, i.e. no more scary eyes. In the manga, she asserts that her overall feelings haven't changed, but her maid Hayasaka teases her and makes her question if she's really in love with Shirogane or if she's just fetishized him, leading Kaguya to confide into Kashiwagi. In the anime, we lack this altogether and instead jump right to Kaguya panicking about her disparage of Shirogane's new appearance. It's no longer an outside force asking the question, Kaguya asks the question of herself. One of the show's biggest themes is realizing your own self-worth and that you deserve to be loved, not finding your worth by being loved. By making this cut, Kaguya seems more introspective, and I think it resonates more so to the show's theme rather than have it being the cause of some light teasing. Cutting certain arcs or smaller sections can give the team behind the project the ability to focus on the bigger picture and do the main story well. If they can give enough care, those holes left by the missing pieces can be filled with newer parts.
Have you heard of the ship of Theseus?
Take something like Ouran High School Host Club, for example. If you compare the first episode to the very first chapter, there's some stark differences, such as how everybody figures out that Haruhi is a girl. This is one of my favorite parts of the episode, and it's actually something that I like a lot more than the manga. Thank you. I mean, both are exquisite options, but if I had to choose, I'll go with the anime, please. Oh, well, I guess I didn't specify which anime. It's a little thin. Oh, well, that's disappointing. Then again, there are certain shows that make cuts that should be scrutinized fairly. The first season of Black Butler, while a classic, is famous for changing its original source material heavily. Part of this was due to the show catching up with the manga and not having enough material to adapt, but I'd say these changes are more obvious in the first episode and chapter. The Seven Seeds anime was an entire blunder, trying to rearrange the events of the story and creating a confusing and bland adaptation, rather than its outstandingly paced manga counterpart. And don't even get me started on the artwork of the show. Speaking of, another more modern, poor example of visual representation is Tune Into the Midnight Heart.
A truly elegant tale.
It's heavily criticized for its lackluster animation and presentation, even though story-wise, it's mostly copy and print. The artwork does matter in some instances, or rather how the art is utilized. Limitations breed creativity. Even a simple scene like this, which the original manga counterpart doesn't have the greatest art style, but if you compare the two, you definitely notice an exorbitant downgrade in staging.
And you see, the elegance of this series must be preserved. That's a lot of butt.
So, which one is better? Which medium is objectively the correct one to enjoy? Whichever one you want, really. I mean, it's fun to compare, but each medium has their strengths and their weaknesses, and sometimes there's an equal ground. Like Ranma 1/2, for example. I love reading this manga, but I also own a few of the 89 Blu-rays, and I have just as much fun watching those. And I adored the 2024 version. I have equal praise and gripes about every single version of this franchise. For example, I adore the voice work of the newest show and the spectacular art style and timing.
Too late, I hit a wall.
I love the lived-in and slower pace of the 89 series, and the manga is an absolute gem of 90s comedy. So like most people, yes, I am taking the coward's choice and saying, like what you like, love what you love. It's alright to prefer one medium over the other or to adore both. But comparing and contrasting is pretty fun. I don't know, maybe in the future I'll take a series and compare it entirely to its anime counterpart, or look at its visual novel or light novel series. The list could be endless. But if you'll excuse me, Tune Into the Midnight Heart's elegance has made me need some shoujo sweetness, so I'm gonna do that. Bye.